Hogan also understands state government. He took a leave from his company to serve as a state cabinet secretary from 2003 to 2007. During this time, Hogan was involved in the appointment of people to all three branches of government and responsible for making the, sorry if I pronounce this word wrong, Ehrlich, steel administration for the most bipartisan, most inclusive, most diverse administration in Maryland history. After the 2010 elections, Hogan could no longer sit on the sidelines and watch the failed policies of the current administration. In order to provide Marylanders with the opportunity to hold their elected officials accountable, Hogan founded Change in Maryland, which has quickly grown into the largest nonpartisan grassroots organization in the state. As chairman and founder, Larry Hogan has been the leader in the effort to change the dialogue in Annapolis. Larry and his wife Yummy, an artist, teacher, and first-generation Korean American, reside in Edgewater, Maryland. They have 3 daughters and are active in many volunteer, civic, and charitable organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me introduce Mr. Larry Hogan.
Well, thank you very, very much. Good evening, everybody. It's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you here tonight. I want to thank you very much for the invitation, and I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. But first of all, I want to thank all of the students. I mean, every single one of the speakers up here, I was so impressed. I want to thank Richard Lucas III for reaching out and inviting us. I want to thank Alpha Phi Alpha for taking the initiative. And how about another round of applause for every one of those speakers? They're kind of a tough act to follow, I got to tell you. But they're a great example of so many alphas over your long history that have been getting involved and making a difference since the founding of your great fraternity. So thank you, alphas, and all you other students, faculty, and guests here at Bowie State University for caring enough to be involved and for inviting us tonight. It's great to be here at the home of the Bulldogs. I grew up here in Prince George's County, inside the Beltway, in Landover and Capitol Heights. And then later, as an adult, I lived right here in Bowie. So it's great to be back home again. The first thing I want to do here tonight is to take a moment to introduce to you my running mate. The guy I believe is going to be the next Lieutenant Governor of the state of Maryland, Secretary Bowie Rutherford. He's over here in the dark. Boyd and I became good friends, serving together as cabinet secretaries in the previous administration. And he's a graduate of Howard University, USC Law School. He's got quite a distinguished career. He was a deputy administrator of the GSA. He was Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and I believe that he's the most experienced and most qualified person to ever run for Lieutenant Governor. I'm very proud to have him on my ticket. And his campaign chairman and treasurer, Randy Nixon, is here with us tonight, and he's an alpha. So please give him a warm welcome to your fraternity brother who's playing an important role in our campaign. Now, you may know that the first African-American elected to statewide office here in Maryland was my friend Michael Steele. He was the chairman of the Republican Party, and Boyd and I both had the pleasure of serving with him. But he was preceded nearly 40 years earlier by Dr. Aris T. Allen, who was a medical doctor, who was a state senator, a chairman of the Maryland Republican Party, and he was the first black candidate for lieutenant governor here in Maryland in history. And he had the backing of and was a very good friend of my dad's. My dad is a former Prince George's County executive who, believe it or not, 40 years ago today, actually ran for governor. Let me tell you a little story about integrity. There was once a congressman from Maryland, a Republican, who was serving on the House Judiciary Committee during the impeachment of President Nixon, when the entire world was watching. Would a member of Congress be willing to buck his own party and his own president to do what he thought was right for the nation? This congressman put aside party politics and risked his entire political career to do what he thought was right for the country. He became the first Republican to come out for impeachment. He was the only Republican in the entire Congress who voted for all 3 articles of impeachment. That man was my dad, Lawrence J. Hogan Sr., and I can tell you I learned more about integrity and doing the right thing and putting aside partisan politics in one day from him than most people learn in a lifetime. So I have a long history of involvement here in Maryland in politics, but I'm not a professional politician. I haven't spent my entire career in office. I've never held elective office. I haven't spent my lifetime running for office. I've spent most of my life in the private sector, building a successful business. I'm just a small businessman, a lifelong Marylander, who's really concerned about the direction of our state, and I'm fed up with politics as usual in Annapolis. I was concerned that our state was way off track and heading in the wrong direction, and that the future of our state was really at risk. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing, knowing that together we could make a difference and that we could bring about real change in Maryland. So 3.5 years ago, I started a nonpartisan grassroots organization called Change Maryland. We were dedicated to finding common sense economic solutions. And what started as just a small group of a couple of fed up friends grew into the largest and fastest growing grassroots organization in state history. We have 112,000 people involved, and nearly half of them are Democrats and independents. Our movement isn't about the differences between the right and the left. It's really about the difference between right and wrong. This is not a typical fight between Republicans and Democrats. It's more important than that. This is a fight for Maryland's future, and it's a fight worth fighting. Folks, I've been traveling all across the state. I've had the opportunity to talk with a great many Marylanders from all walks of life, from one end of the state to the other. And the common theme that I keep hearing everywhere is frustration. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, rich or poor, young or old, Democrat or Republican, from inner city Baltimore or from a small farm on the Eastern Shore. People everywhere feel a huge disconnect between the politicians in Annapolis and the rest of Maryland. We feel that our elected leaders are not only not solving the serious problems that face us, but that they're actually causing the problems and making things worse. Quite frankly, most of the people I talk with, they're really angry and frustrated with Republicans and Democrats. And they wish that the parties would just stop fighting. We wouldn't have so much partisanship, that we could just sit down at the table together, reach across the aisle, and come up with real bipartisan solutions to the serious problems that are facing us. Folks, our state is in real trouble, and we can't keep moving backwards for another 4 years. Something has to be done to turn our state around before it's too late. The current administration in Annapolis has passed 40 consecutive tax hikes that have taken an additional $10 billion out of the pockets of struggling Marylanders, families, and small businesses. And most of these taxes are regressive taxes that really affect people at the lower end of the income scale the most. This has been devastating to our economy. We've lost 10 of our 13 Fortune 500 companies. We've lost 8,000 small businesses. We've doubled unemployment in the state. 100,000 people have lost their jobs. 200,000 Marylanders are now unemployed. Last month, we led the nation in job loss. We're second in the nation in foreclosures. Folks, we just can't continue heading in the same direction. Here in Prince George's County, where we have the wealthiest and most highly educated black population in the United States, we lead the nation. We're now #1 in foreclosures. In Maryland, we've had the largest mass exodus of taxpayers, voting with their feet and heading for the exits, fleeing our state, of any state in the Mid-Atlantic region. 31,000 Marylanders have left the state, taking with them $1.7 billion a year out of our economy. And a recent Gallup poll showed that nearly half of all Marylanders, 47%, would leave the state if they could. You know, Maryland is a wonderful state with so many great assets. And in spite of all those natural assets, we've had zero economic growth, and our state economy ranks 49th out of 50 states. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care who you are, black or white, young or old, Democrat or Republican, this economic performance should simply be unacceptable to all Marylanders. We can't keep moving backwards for another 4 years. We should be number 1, not number 49. The people in this room tonight and people everywhere all across our state deserve much better than that. It doesn't matter whether I'm in Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, or Baltimore City. I'm meeting with people who feel that they've been forgotten. They feel that they're either starting to lose or they've already lost hope. Hope in the system, hope in their elected representatives, and hope for the future for themselves and their families. Just recently, on Labor Day weekend, we held a cookout in inner city Baltimore, and we walked around those neighborhoods. Is anybody here from Baltimore? A couple right down here. Well, do you know the Rosemont section? Walbrook Junction, North Avenue? These are places where we spent some time recently. And people told us that nobody ever shows up in their neighborhoods, that nobody cares about them. We were the first ones who showed up, and we listened. And you know what was interesting? The folks on North Avenue had some of the same feelings as the folks in Western Maryland or other parts of the state. People told us, we're forgotten. No one cares about us or our concerns. Taxes are too high. We need more jobs. Nobody is solving the problems. Many of the folks we met in those neighborhoods said they don't usually vote. And the ones who do, we know, will most likely vote for our opponents. But we went there anyway, and we told them that we do care, and that if they want things to change in their neighborhoods, that they have the power to change it. The power is in their hands. They can vote to bring about change by voting for a change in the leadership in power and voting to go in a new direction. You can't just stay home and complain about the problems and not get involved in trying to do something about them. You have to get out and vote. You have to challenge the status quo.